Hello, my name is Evelyn Situmorang. I'm an English literature student at University of Sumatera Utara. In this video, I'm going to talk about neurolinguistics. Have you ever wondering what about our brains that makes human language possible? Where in our brain is a word that we've learned being stored? How does a word come to mind when we need it? Or why does it sometimes not come to us? Does language use the same kind of neural computations as other cognitive systems, such as music or mathematics? And why is our communication system so elaborate and so different from that of other animals? Neurolinguistics tries to answer those questions. But what is neurolinguistics? Neurolinguistics is a field of study that comprises the linguistic and medical science to explain about the relationship between language and human brain. It tries to explore how the brain understands and produces language and communication. This involves attempting to combine neurological or neurophysiological theory, how the brain is structured and how it functions, with the linguistic theory, how language is structured and how it functions. The scope of neurolinguistics is the human language and communication, whether it is in the form of speech, hearing, reading, writing, or nonverbal modalities, related to any aspect of the brain or brain function. Some of the central questions of neurolinguistics are: what happens to language and communication after brain damage of different types? How did the ability to communicate and the ability to use language develop as the species evolved? How can we relate this development to the evolution of the brain? How do children learn to communicate and use language? How can we relate their acquisition of language to the development of their brains? How can we measure and visualize processes in the brain that are involved in language and communication? How can we make good models and language communication processes that will help us to explain the linguistic phenomena that we study? How can we make computer simulations of language processing, language development, and language loss? How can we design experiments that will allow us to test our models and hypotheses about language processing? The first question, which is what happens to language and communication after brain damage of different types, occupies a special place in neurolinguistics. Aphasia is defined as language loss due to brain damage. The cause can, for example, be an infection, which is the blockage of blood vessels in the brain, a hemorrhage, which is the bursting of a blood vessel, or a head trauma. The effect of the lesion is that the comprehension and/or the production of language is changed. By studying these changes, we can study how functional systems related to language work and which brain structures are involved in them. People have always studied the loss of different abilities in order to map the functions of the brain. Aphasia is an acquired language disorder, often defined as a local lesion. An example, a lesion of one or more specific areas. Acquired disorders can also be caused by progressive neurological disease, such as dementia. Language and memory are closely connected and interdependent, especially in complex higher cognitive functions. Not only acquired language disorders, but also developmental language disorders, which is the disorders that are found in children who have not experienced any specific lesion event, are of the interest to neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistic approaches to developmental language disorders such as SLI or specific language disorders, and development reading or writing problems, including dyslexia. Neurolinguistics typically compare these conditions to similar acquired disorders while bearing in mind the special conditions of language acquisitions and the plasticity, the ability to mold it, of young brains. Neurolinguists also study the language development of children with non-specific developmental disorders affecting language. The development of language and speech and prerequisites for language and the speech in the evolution of the species also need to be considered by neurolinguists. The changes in structure and function of the brain are compared to different species' ways of living. For instance, animal communication systems are studied under natural conditions, especially those of primates. And the experiments are carried out with primates that are being taught human communication system. For a neurolinguist, an essential source of knowledge is the possibility of measuring brain activity during language tasks in normal or damaged brains. Static pictures of the brain where lesion sites can be seen through CT scan or computer tomography scan, which constructs a three-dimensional picture of lesion from X-rays of many planes in the brain. Another tool is the MRI or magnetic resonance image that are the standard information in the hospitals today. The measurement of dynamic activity in the brain during language tasks can be done by methods such as EEG or electroencephalography, PET, positron emission tomography, fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, and MEG, magnetic encephalography. Furthermore, psycholinguistics actually provides the basis for neurolinguistics modeling of processes for language comprehension, linguistic memory, language productions, language acquisition, and language loss. Such models can be the basis of computer simulations using serial, for example, box and neural models, models with parallel processes running at the same time, interconnections between processes, and feedback loops between levels of the process models. Computer simulations involving called artificial neural networks (ANN) or connectionist networks are also used. The models are also the basis of offline and online, for instance with real-time measurement of processes, experiments on language functions. I think that's all for this neurolinguistics video. Thank you for watching and goodbye!